Hi everyone, I'm Bijan from Product Management Exercises. I'm here today with Nir, one of the users of Product Management Exercises. He used our website to prepare for his PM job interviews and got a job at Atlassian as an associate PM. And today we're going to practice a Google Product Manager interview question together during a PM interview. And with that said, Nir, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself before we start?
Sure thing. So, hi everyone. Hi Bijan. I wasn't just introduced. I just recently had an APM interview with Atlassian and I got the job, which I'm very excited for. So, for those of you who care, my background is in mechatronics engineering and commerce. And I'm now finishing my final semester at university and I'll be starting working with Atlassian early next year. So, I'm very excited for that and I'm very excited for this mock interview and I'll get some prep in.
All right, sounds good. Let's get started. So the question that we picked today, it's a little bit of a hard one, but that's why I like it, and I think it's a good question to practice. It was asked during a Google PM interview. The question is, how would you solve the dog poop problem?
Okay, how would you solve the dog poop problem? Nice. Before we start, I just quickly want to mention that, like I said before, I'm just getting now into the APM program and I don't have diverse PM exercises. So to really get the most out of the session, make sure you watch my answer, but also Bijan's comments at the end and his feedback. I did a lot of prep, but still take everything I say with a grain of salt and make sure you get a full picture. Just to give you some context for my answer, a bit of a disclaimer. Let me quickly, before I start answering, just make a few clarifications, if that's all right. So first of all, are we a government body or a private body? So are we kind of a startup trying to solve this issue, or are we more of a formal government body looking at it?
That's a really good question. Let's assume for now that this is a government body.
Cool, government body. Awesome. Yeah. And my other question is whether there is any limitations on the design for the question. For example, are we looking at potentially a software product or a hardware product? Like, does it matter which direction to take it? Or do I have a bit more flexibility around direction, for example?
No limitation on that. You have flexibility and you can choose the most viable path that makes sense to you.
Awesome. And the last thing I just want to clarify, do we have, basically if there's no location given, because the question is fairly wide, we can look at it as solving a dog problem in the world in a global sense. It can be in a specific country, in a specific city of the country. If I have the freedom, I would definitely choose, for example, the suburbs of Australia, just because I know there is a dog poop problem here, and I'm a bit more familiar with the environment. So I'm happy to do that. Otherwise, if you're happy with this assumption, I can continue here, or if you have any other requests, I'm happy to work around.
Yeah, that's fine. We can go with Australia cool. As the kind of geographical area that you're building this for.
Awesome. So just to, again, clarify the scope, I'll be focusing mainly on different solutions in the issue around the suburbs of Australia, let's say in the main cities like Melbourne, Brisbane, Sydney, and so on. Awesome. So another thing I want to note is if we're looking at this geographical location of those cities, of those suburbs, we have a few main areas where dog poop problems can occur. So one area, for example, for the problem would be private property, right? People who own dogs and have dogs in their own private houses. The other option would be streets, right? Like just your average streets, side roads, stuff like that. And another option would be parks, right? Where people take dogs and release them and let them out. I guess you can also include just trails, right? Nature trails and stuff like that, where people might take dogs out for a walk. And finally, I'd say beaches, just kind of outlining some, let's say trails and beaches we'll put together, just nature and kind of outer regions. Awesome. So we'll have to look into the different kind of areas and where we want to solve the problem. So that's good. Now, before I continue, I just want to give a quick outline of how I'd like to approach this problem. So it's good we made some clarifications, we narrowed down kind of the area for the problem. What I'd like to do is, again, focus a bit on the issue itself. So maybe discuss the source of the issue. Then I want to look at the potential people who are involved, the stakeholders, the potential users for the solution that will be come up with, and then look at the potential issues they might have. So look at the user journey, look at what they go through, and potential pain points and issues that cause the dog problem to happen. And then I would like to brainstorm a solution and maybe outline how that would work and maybe some pros and cons around that as well. Yeah, do you have any questions about the structure or my direction?
Got it. No, I think the structure is good. I got a quick question for you. You mentioned
Sure.
that there are, you mentioned a few different kind of places where, the dog food problem could exist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm curious to know what's the thinking behind segmenting it this way and how they differ from each other from a product perspective.
Sure. So I feel like different geographical areas would potentially have different features that, again, depending on the solution, could or may not impact the way it is being implemented or launched. For example, there might be things that would be practical to do in a park. They'll be a bit easier to implement if you only target parks versus targeting, the full area. Also, let's say private properties where they might have a dog proof problem in their own yards. As a government body, it's not something we can, or potentially we won't really care as much to look into, or won't even have the power to look into, and the impact won't be as big. So I think some of those areas might have a bit bigger of an impact for us as a government that we would care about more than other areas, for example. So I guess, yeah, it's a good question. And following up from that, I think we can eliminate private property as an area we'll be looking into. So if someone has an issue with poop in their backyard or on their lawns, it's kind of something for them to take care of.
Got it.
I hope they kind of clarified a bit.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of get a sense of like why you're
Awesome.
thinking about these different areas. Okay, sounds good.
So taking it from here, looking at the other kind of areas and options, I think I'm going to leave it there. I'm just going to explore the problem a bit more, and then I can go back and narrow it down around the people and kind of the journey they go through. So what I'd like to do is just take a couple of minutes and just think through some of the problem and some of the people who might be involved in it. That's all right?
Sounds good. Yeah.
Perfect.
And for those of you that are watching, I'd like to invite you to like this YouTube video if you enjoy watching it. Subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more mock interview videos, and visit our website at productmanagementexercises.com if you're preparing for your PM job interviews. And if there's any particular PM interview question that you'd like to see us practice at PM exercises, please feel free to post a question in the comment section of this video, and I'll try to cover it during the next mock interview sessions.
All right. So I'd like to walk through some of the thoughts I had around this problem again, and I was mainly focusing right now at looking at the kind of people who we might be targeting for this dog food problem and the issue itself, so we really understand it. So as a government body, that's kind of the assumption we made here. I think the main thing obviously we care about is public spaces and helping reduce the dog food problem. Now, in the context of this problem, I would be discussing dog food problem as the problem of dogs who are owned by citizens who take them on walks, and the dogs poop, and then the owners don't pick up the poop, leaving it on the street, in the park, on the beach, on the trail, wherever it is, where people can step on it, and it ruins the day. It's not very hygienic. It's not a great thing to do. So just to clarify, I'm hoping that is what the dog food problem refers to. Can you confirm that, Bijan?
Yeah, that's right. And thank you for walking through the user journey. I think that's really good. To make sure that we're clear on what we're discussing here.
Awesome. Just wanted to double check. There's having like two dog food problems. Awesome. So looking at the kind of people who might be involved in this dog food problem, I would say I divide them into a few groups of people generally. I'd say that conscious owners, people who are really conscious about their contribution or their responsibility with the dog, so kind of conscious, responsible owners. I'd say on the other hand, you also have non-conscious owners, so people who actively don't care about dog poop. And I would also say another category would be new owners. So owners who own a dog for the first time, they haven't really had the experience or the time to fall into either one of the groups. They're kind of just starting out the journey of owning a dog, and they haven't really tried, haven't had the experience with a dog yet. So those are kind of the three main categories I would see for dog owners in this context. Now, I think it would be good for us to focus on one of those groups for the sake of this exercise. Now,
Yeah.
do you have any questions, by the way, about my the way I divide the groups? Or
No, that's good. Makes sense, and I get why you're doing these 3 user groups.
cool. So looking at conscious owners, I feel like they're interesting. They'll be easy to reach out to, but at the same time, they're probably likely the least problematic group, the least likely contributor to the dog poop problem, right? They might make a mistake here and there, but ultimately, just by definition, we see them as the group of people who would be a bit more conscious around their actions. Now we have the non-conscious owners, or the people who would potentially not care and would leave dog poop on the street and not pick it up actively. Now that would be an interesting group to target, right? Because they would be potentially kind of there. And then we have the new owners who are not nor here nor there. And I think for the purpose of this question, while it would seem like the non-conscious owners would be a good group to target because they might be a big contributor, I feel like it would be interesting to focus on the new owners, mainly because they would have a balance of easy to influence, maybe early on when they're just getting a dog, getting them into a habit of cleaning after the dog or kind of taking care, transitioning them into conscious owners when they're just new owners. So you'll potentially have an easier time converting them and still have a good impact on the whole equation. So I'd like to really focus on the journey and a solution aimed at new owners for those reasons.
Got it.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Let's focus on that. Yeah.
Awesome. So I'll quickly, this thing will help me to think through the problem and kind of be here. Now I'm happy, I'll share my screens there. I'm just taking some notes and just to help me follow through the question. And I'm happy to share them later on as well. But I drew a stick figure for myself and I called him Bob. And I really would so Bob is a new dog owner. And I just to quickly walk through Bob's experience with owning a new dog and where it would lead us to potentially having a dog poop problem with Bob, right? And then we can look at where we can intervene and maybe some of the friction points that lead Bob to cause the dog poop problem to increase. So Bob buys his or gets his dog. Could be adoption, can be hopefully adoption, but he gets his dog. So from a shelter, from a breeder, adopt/dog. Then he would proceed to take the dog on walks. So that would include hopefully taking or not taking bags with him on the walk, or other equipment that I've seen people use for that. That would include planning maybe normally people would, I'd say, plan their walk before they go out on the dog walk. So they have a route of some sort, unless they can go to an unusual place. So either plan route, or alternatively, if it's a new trip or hiking or something, it would just go and it would be maybe an unplanned route, just a hike. So maybe not knowing the exact length of the trip, right? Or maybe because the new owner, they won't really know what to expect with a dog in a new environment. That could be a potential contributor. From there, we would have the dog pooping, right?
Okay.
And then we would have the owner having to pick it up or not pick it up, make the decision of picking it up, pick up the poop, or not pick it up. Cool. Now, looking at this kind of high level experience, we see there's a few potential areas of friction. For example, when the route for the walk is initially being planned, it can be, again, for a new owner, they might not really know the distance exactly or time-wise that they will be walking. They might not really know the exact behavior of the dog, right, for certain trips. I know I used to be a dog owner, and after a while, you kind of learn the dynamic of your dog's natural behavior. But for a new owner, that might be a bit confusing, even if you own dogs in the past. When you get a new dog, they have the whole personality, they have the body functions in different ways. So there's some learning curve there. So even if you would like to take a bag or clean after your dog, you might either forget to take a bag initially at that step, or you just won't take enough. So you have issues around that kind of the routing. Then you have the actual dog pooping, which you can't really do much about. But then you have the pickup or no pickup scenario, where an owner can choose to pick it up or not pick it up, and you can see a few issues there. So if we go through, just kind of through this kind of user journey, we can see a few potential issues. So one of them is not knowing or forgetting to take bags to pick up dog poop. Again, assuming bags are the main tool used to pick up dog poop, the main available tool. So not knowing how many to take, or remembering to take bags at all. We can see another one around not knowing, or I guess not predicting the length of the route, potentially, which kind of builds into that problem as well. There's the action of discomfort at picking up the dog poop. I think it's fair to assume for some people that would cause, or a lot of people, it would cause discomfort. I almost say that this is the main reason people don't do that. If there was a pleasant thing, everyone would do that. So discomfort in the pickup. Cool. Then we have, cool. And then we have awareness as well for a new owner, maybe not having the awareness or the understanding the importance, right, of picking up. Awareness for the importance, like the sentence, the awareness for the importance of picking up dog poop. So the potential implication it has on the environment they live in, on other people, not fully understanding the implication, right? Because dog poop, might have some health risks involved. You might have, different things that are involved around that issue. So looking at those, I might take a minute just to kind of again reanalyze the pain points and think about prioritizing them, and really looking at the best way to prioritize them and know what I want to focus on. If that's right with you, Bijan?
Yep, that's fine.
Cool, thank you. Off the record, do you think 4 pain points are enough, or should I come up with more?
That's fine. I think 4 is fine. Yeah, I think 4 is the right. It's good enough of a number.
Cool.
And for those of you that are watching, if you'd like to watch more mock interviews like this one, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you'd like to support us, like this YouTube video. If there's any particular mock interview question you'd like us to practice, please write it in the comment section of this video. And visit us at productmanagementexercises.com.
Okay, so I just looked through some of the pain points, and I think it'll be important for me to really nail down and prioritize some of the pain points before I dive right into the solution. So I just looked at, first of all, not knowing how many bags to take. Now, the main criteria I looked at prioritizing for this problem is the impact on the problem, the potential impact this kind of pain point has, and how important it is to the problem, how strong it is of an issue, and then the size of the problem, or the size of the pain points in the cause of the problem. So looking at not knowing how many bags to take, I think it has a medium, what I call a 2. So in a scale of 3, it has like a medium number 2 impact, which means that even if all the owners knew how many bags to take, it might not have solved the full problem, but it would have had a medium impact on it. Looking again at the size of the opportunity, how many people don't know how many bags to take. Again, out of 3, I'd say about a medium level. So I'd say some people will have no clue or just forget to take them all together. And some people will have a better idea just intuitively or maybe through experience of friends and family and stuff like that. I'd say it's about a 2 both ways.
Can you elaborate what you said? It has a medium impact, like if you know how many
Yeah,
bags to take.
I'll go over it again. So basically, the 2 criteria I use to evaluate just kind of the basic evaluation of
Yeah.
the pain points is the impact on the problem. Basically, the way I look at it is, if this pain point didn't exist, how big of an impact would it have made on a dog poop problem? So if I could 100% eliminate it, how big of an impact would it have actually made to the dog poop problem?
Got it. I see what
Right.
you mean. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of clear. And then the size of the opportunity is, if I could eliminate the problem completely, and let's say every person who had this friction eliminated for, how many of those people are out there? How many people actually forget,
Got it.
the dog
Like
poop?
the
'Cause if you
market
have,
size, basically.
essentially, yeah, market
Yeah.
size for people who have issue with dog poop. So I think for this issue of not knowing how many bags to take, I'd say out of the market of new dog owners, you have about a medium level, a number 2 out of 3 of people who would forget or not know exactly how many bags to take. So 2 out of 3 people. And then the impact, again, the size of the problem, I'd say between maybe a 1.5. So I don't think, like, it is definitely a contributor, but it's not going to be, if every person took the perfect amount of bags, there will still be a dog poop problem, in my opinion. So that's kind of a medium both ways. Then not knowing the route. So again, that's kind of not accounting. So even if you know how many bags to take normally, if you take a new route, for example, how would you account for that? Now, I think the impact, so the kind of the importance of this problem is a 1. I don't think this is a huge problem, especially because we do have a lot of tools to help us around routing and finding a way around things and predicting distance of walks. So it might still happen. I don't think it's as big of a problem. So I'd say a 1 around the actual impact and maybe a 2 around the size of it. So for new owners going on walks, just intuitively, I'd say, they knew that maybe they haven't walked around the neighborhood as much as they would with a dog. So you have some people who don't really know, but at the same time, there's a lot of ways to mitigate that if they want to. So 1 on impact, 2 on size. Then looking at discomfort during the pickup process. I'd say that's a 3 on impact. So I generally think if there was no discomfort in the pickup process, there wouldn't have been a dog poop prone to begin with, or it would have been very little, much smaller than it is now. Walking around with dog poop in your hand, or like, even in a bag, and it can be fairly unappealing. And then we're looking at the size of the opportunity. I think it's about a 2.5 even, right? So looking at people who actually have an issue with dog poop, I think the majority of people have an issue with dog poop, but people who would have it to the extent of just not willing to pick up dog poop without having any all else equal, I'd say it's about a 2.5. So that's a fairly powerful pain point. And then the last one is awareness for the importance of dog poop pickup. So how important is the full impact it has? I'd say, again, on impact scale, it has a 2 out of 3. So even if everyone knew the importance, I'd say, again, it have a 2 out of 3 kind of chance of it being the full solution for the problem. And then the size of the opportunity, I'd say probably a 3 for new dog owners, not being fully aware of the implications, and not just for dog owners, for people in general. But it also comes to new dog owners. I think there's some, maybe people don't fully know, besides obviously just living in there and someone stepping, like the full implication health-wise and health risks, right? If someone steps on it, takes it home, the potential pathogens and stuff like that can come along with it. So I'd say it's a fairly powerful point. So from this, basically, it leads me to having 2 fairly powerful pain points, 2 powerful frictions I'd like to potentially focus on, which is the discomfort for picking up dog poop, and then we have the lack of awareness around picking up dog poop, which I think are the 2 major kind of friction points during the journey that prevent users from picking up after the dogs. So what I'll do now, I'll take just 1 more minute to formulate some solutions and come with some suggestions that hopefully would actually help us solve this dog poop problem on it. All right, so I'm back, and I'd like to quickly walk you through some of the solutions I came up with and go from there. So let's start. One solution I was looking at is scented bags. So at the moment, in parks or some key areas here, some beaches, you would have bag dispensers. Now, I'm not sure if you haven't been in Canada, if you've seen them around, but we actually, I've seen the supermarkets scented rubbish bags, rubbish, for the bins, which have been kind of cool. I mean, I bought it one mistake. I didn't even know it was scented. I got it home, and turns out it was a lavender scented bag. And I think it really surprisingly made a difference on how the rubbish area smelled. So having a similar kind of scent bag, but instead for dogs. So replacing the existing bags that are on the street for dog owners to take, and adding scent to them. And that would mainly be targeting those people who have a discomfort of picking up a dog poop and maybe walking around with it looking for a bin. So that is something I can see helping some people get a bit more comfortable with the idea, especially early on for new users, just getting into this habit and not having this negative connotations and this smell and negative connotation to picking up dog poop, and really enabling this kind of good habit, basically. Moving on to the second one, I would be looking at a compulsory education module. So the way it would work roughly is that when you get a dog and you register it and you chip it, you basically have to also do a compulsory educational module that would walk you through the importance of picking up dog poop from every scenario. So as a citizen, being kind to the environment and the others around you, the potential use maybe of tax money later on to clean, so how you potentially pay for it yourself to clean dog poop, and also the pathogens it carries with it, and what happens if people step on it and walk around into a store that you walk into, and there's the different dangers around it as well. So just look at all the different elements. And here in Australia, we actually have a centralized government website called MyGov, and it has a bunch of add-ons that when you have your main kind of interface, you can add your tax office account and add government support accounts and all those kind of random modules that you can add to your main government website. So that would be a fairly intuitive and easy way to add this extra module into your existing government site that people already are used to logging into. So that's another option. Another one would be, I call it a pick a poop reward program. So basically, the government would partner up with pet shops or large pet food suppliers and let people collect points by picking up dog poop. So finding a way to identify whether a user has or a dog owner has picked up dog poop can be with maybe an app where you record and you have some sort of computer vision or AI system that identifies that through this recording, dog poop has been picked up. And then finally, and then you get points, and then you redeem those points at the store, and maybe the partners who participate in this program will get some tax write-off for the stock they sell through the program or some other benefits. So it's a win-win kind of. And then the last one would be an AI tool to alert officers in high traffic areas that a dog has pooped and no one has picked up their poop, and maybe take a photo of that of the dog and the owner, so the officers can go and find the owner or issue a warning and something like that. So basically, the tool would be trained to identify a dog and see when it's pooping, and then identify whether the owner is picking up the poop or not, and send an alert to nearby officers to look at that. Now, that's all. There are solutions, but I really like to focus, at least for the purpose of this question, on what I would think is the most effective one for the context that we discussed. So again, I created a little table for me that looks at a few different elements to evaluate each solution. So one of them would be the impact on the problem. So again, how we described the problems already. The problems are discomfort when picking up dog poop, and the awareness around the importance of picking up dog poop. So how big of an impact would those solutions make on the problem? Now, the scale I like to use, I know some people love to use low, high, medium. I don't like that because I feel like you can say, oh, this is low, this is high, this is medium over multiple kind of scenarios, but it's hard to keep track. So I like having numerical values. So I'd go from -3 to 3, where 1 to 3 is a positive impact from 1 low to 3 high, and then -1 to -3 is a negative impact from low negative impact to high negative impact. And it would make sense in a second once I describe my criteria. So impact on problem, we're looking at scented bags. I'd say it's a 2, right? At least from my experience and my housemates, I feel like having scented bags really help change the experience around, taking the bins out and replacing rubbish bags. I think it has the potential for at least a few people to change the way the whole experience of picking up dog poop is. So I'd say a 2 impact-wise, a positive 2. Now, because we are a government body, going back to my initial clarification, I think every decision we make would be governed with how would people view this decision, right? The wider population or dog owners themselves, how would they see it? So impact on our popularity as a body in government right now would actually be something we really want to look into. We wouldn't want to piss too many people off. But I think in this case, again, the idea is that the government would replace existing plastic bags that they provide with scented ones. So I think it will be a positive impact. You're providing a free service, obviously taxes, but overall on its face, a free service. You're replacing existing bags with better bags, improved bags, scented bags. So that's a good thing. So we have a 2 and a 2. But then the last one I'd like to evaluate is cost of implementation. Obviously, government being very price sensitive for new projects like this. I'd say we have to be very aware of the cost. And I think the cost in this case would be a -2, because I do think it's an ongoing commitment to providing a higher priced item, a scented item. I don't know how, obviously scented bags are a lot less available than regular bags. So you'll have to find a manufacturer that does it in the correct quantity over a long period of time, or manufacture them locally. Essentially, because it's a reoccurring investment, I mark it as a -2. So overall, we have a score of 2 for this one. And we'll get back to the overall scores later. Then we have compulsory education modules, like we discussed. So I think the impact on the problem, again, is a 2. It's not 100%, but I think it has the potential of having good change, really taking people from not really knowing what's going on to having a good idea. And because it's compulsory, essentially everyone will have to do that. Now, impact on popularity, I would say would be a -2, mainly because people don't like to be told what to do. And I think adding this extra friction point to the user journey in trying to get a pet, and I'm also supposed to be overall positive experience, and this can add some either resentment or just not positive feelings around it. And I just think it's extra complication in this user journey that people won't really like, and doesn't really benefit the dog owner. So we look at the -2 in this one. And then cost of implementation, and it's not a -3, by the way, because I think, again, it would have some impact on the problem. And then there will be citizens who appreciate that some people would have to go through this module. So it would have been a -3, but I brought it to -2 because of the impact of other individuals. Then looking at the cost of implementation, I put it as a 1, because there would be a one-off cost of making the module, but then there really won't be maintenance. So we have a 1 going into that. Then we have the Pick a Poop rewards program. I'd say 2 on the impact again. I don't think every user would use it. I think there'll be some, again, there might be some difficulties with, recording and then adding this whole extra step. But I think it would make a difference. Impact on popularity, I think it's a 2. You give people the opportunity, to do the right thing and get some rewards for it and potentially obtain some free dog food, for example, or dog toys. I think it's a very good thing people would enjoy. But again, cost of implementation, I would say a -2 in this one. Mainly because, again, it's a reoccurring, you'd have to give some concessions to those big pet businesses. Can really add up, especially, I can touch on it later as well. If you take advantage of the system in some way, or if there's some issues with it, there might be some large costs associated with it over time. So we're looking at the -2, bringing us to an overall cost of 2. And finally, we're looking at the AI tool, the find system. I think the impact on the problem would be a 3. I think it'll be fairly powerful, especially if we focus on streets and high traffic areas. The impact on popularity, I would say would be a -1. So it would have been a higher negative, but again, it's negative because people don't like to get fines. And I think dog owners who used to not, or wouldn't otherwise, so new dog owners who kind of don't really know what's happening, could potentially get upset at a harsher fining system. But at the same time, I think because the impact will be so significant on the reduction in dog poop, that the overall consensus around the decision will be offset some of the negativity, essentially. And finally, the cost of implementation, I'd say around 1. So obviously developing the system would be expensive, but once it's developed, I don't think there'll be many costs associated, and then the additional fines would have offset the costs ultimately. So I'd give it an overall of 3. So we have 2 for scented bags, 1 for compulsory education modules, 2 for Pick a Poop rewards program, and 3 for the AI fine tool system. So naturally, I'll be leaning towards the AI fine tool system as a solution to explore and that could potentially solve our problem here. Do you have any questions, Bijan, or any clarification?
No, let's go and let's try to see if we can design the product in fairly quick time. Let's assume that we're kind of getting towards the end of the interview, and the interview is, we want to kind of come up with an answer pretty quickly.
Of course. So I think the last step here, really, so now we have a fairly wholesome solution. The last thing that we would have to do is just quickly describe what it would look like. So the way I envision it is developing, first of all, an algorithm to be able to identify what a dog is, which already exists. We have open source YOLO 3, if any of you know, already can tell what a dog is. The next step would be identifying a dog when it's pooping. There's certain physiological behaviors around dogs when they poop that we can identify, or the actual poop in some cases. And then we can identify what some key identifications to give us confidence whether a poop has been picked up. So whether a human, changed position to bend over to pick up the poop, has the poop disappeared within a reasonable amount of time, and take all those elements. Has a dog appeared? Has it pooped? Has the poop been picked up? Has someone picked it up? To give us some confidence level that will trigger a potential, a warning for a poop not being picked up or having been picked up. So once we have this algorithm built, it will be implemented into some camera systems. It can be mobile, so it can be some sort of deployed camera system on police vehicles, can be stable kind of like traffic cameras placed in initially, at least in high traffic areas, or areas that are known to have high density of dogs or high density of complaints of dog poop. And then police officers who already have some sort of communication device on them would get alerts from that system. Once poop has been picked up, we'll give an alert of where it is, maybe even send a photo so that the police could see, or the officers could see what the person looked like, what the dog looked like, and be able to quickly follow up. So obviously the system would know where the officers are based on the location, and can direct them to the correct location. And then they can treat it as is. They can decide to give a fine, or they can decide to give a warning. At the very least, if you have a photo of the offender, you can at least have some sort of something to look out for to help increase the the chances of catching someone who pooped, and more dog who pooped, and more than anything, I think you'll increase the awareness for people for picking up the dog poop, right? Like with cameras, don't have cameras in every red traffic light, but people are much more aware of not going over the speed limit because they know there might be a camera, or there might be a police car. So it's kind of the combination of psychological impact with the actual fining system, and that's my solution. I think that's give you a good summary of what it would look like and why I decided to choose and go ahead with this specific solution.
Yeah, I'm curious to know, what are some of the trade-offs on this approach in your opinion? Like, what are the potential challenges with the solution? It would be great if you can quickly talk about that.
Yeah, of course. So one of them that I already mentioned is the popularity impact. So again, you can, as a government body, that's one thing you would need to be aware of, how people react to potentially being approached more for dog poop when in the past they haven't been. Another potential issue is how, with technology, how confident can we be in a busy street that a dog has pooped and the poop hasn't been picked up. So there might be some technological gaps there in the development process and in a confidence process. Can also divert police from other activities, right? So if we do have errors, the impact that an error would make. So in a pick a poop rewards program or in sending bags, a mistake won't be as bad. But when you talk about taking public servants and police officers' time, the impact of a mistake or a wrong kind of time waste can be fairly impactful. So we have to be very careful about the testing and implementation. I also think it'll be a bit difficult to scale compared to some of the other solutions. Yeah, so scalability could be a potential issue here as well, just because you have to create more hardware, put it everywhere else. You'd have to have police officers present. So scalability would be another issue. But I think those cover the major concerns I would have, at least early on in considering the solution. Yeah.
Got it. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. How do you think you did before I started evaluating you and giving you some feedback?
Yeah, so just a quick note for people. Last time I had a mock interview with Bijan, it was night for him and morning for me. So this time we flipped around. So now it's 12 o'clock at night for me. So it's midnight for me, and it's nice and shiny and morning for Bijan. So I'm a bit out of it. So yeah, just so you know. But overall, I feel like I've done okay. I think I hope I outlined pretty well the solution. I'm sure there's things I could have done better. So I'm looking forward to hear the feedback. But yeah, I hope I outlined the structure, at least my reasoning well enough, I hope.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'd love to hear the feedback now.
Yeah, I mean, I think your structure was really good, to be honest. I really liked it. You started off well, asking very good clarification questions. You narrowed down the scope of the question pretty quickly, which gave you really good directions in terms of where to go and how to solve it. You walked through the user journey. I really liked the user groups that you identified. I thought they were very meaningful, and that was great. And the one that you focused on, I think it was really good. I mean, the first, I think the solution that you came up with was probably more suitable for the non-conscious owners than the first-timers, because I feel like that the pain points for first-timers is a little bit different than non-conscious owners. And you highlighted some of them, but not willing to pick up unless there are consequences, I think resonates more with the non-conscious owners than the first-timers. Whereas in the case first-timers is usually, I don't know what to do, or I don't know why it's important, and things like that. So penalty, it might be the kind of the last thing that you want to do with them. I think you talked about the different pain points that exist. I thought they were very meaningful. The causes of basically somebody not being able to pick up the poop. I think the two that you picked could have been potentially one. I really like the idea of sometimes focusing in just like one pain point and solving it better than anybody else. And especially during 30 minutes, that really helps you, because I think our interview took a little bit longer than it normally would. And potentially one reason is we had two pain points eventually selected. So if you pick just one, like, awareness or just like discomfort, then I think it would be a lot easier. Having said that, I think the solutions that you came up with, most of them were relevant to awareness and discomfort. But interestingly, the one that you picked wasn't directly solving for awareness or discomfort. It was solving for lack of basically careness, or lack of like conscious. So I would have said that maybe the solution that you highlighted, one of the solutions was like, education, for example. That probably spoke more directly to lack of awareness, because you're not aware and you need to be educated. I think, and I'm being like over critical here just because I want to make sure that this is also a good learning experience. Overall, like I said, I thought the structure of the answer was good. I think that the pain points are very relevant. I think the solutions are very good solutions. When it came to evaluation, spend less time evaluating. You can be more decisive and just say, out of these four, I'm going to go with this one, and because I think it has the biggest impact and it's the easiest to develop. If you have more time, feel free to pick two, criteria. But I would keep them simple. Like I wouldn't have the negative and the positive. I'll just like keep it simple so that you can move on quickly, because evaluation is not going to be what sets you apart from others. It's really the how you came all the way to picking a problem and really picking the right, basically having interesting set of solutions and like really brainstorming on the solution side. So I would have spent less time there. I think that the solution is interesting. There are a couple things that come to mind as potential concerns, and I could be wrong on this, and it could be that actually it works. But I would think that there might be some concerns around privacy. So, for example, there's like I've heard some backlash on in the UK because there's a lot of cameras in the streets of London, and people might say, "Hey, it's very we kind of feel like we're being watched by the government." And I'm sure the cameras are being installed today for the purpose of like dog poops, but what if they get extended to other purposes tomorrow? So that's one thing. I think there's a couple things we should kind of pay attention to from logistically. One is the logistics of identifying the person might be a bit more work. In the case of a car, it's kind of easy because every car has a plate number that is like easy to kind of read with the camera, and you can directly tie it to that person. Like you can basically enter the plate number and exactly where they live and like what kind of car it is and all that information about the person. So you can easily go back to them and send them a mail and say, here's your ticket. Whereas in this case, you might not have that same luxury, or maybe there's a creative way to think about it, but I think it'll be kind of hard for the police officer to necessarily identify someone in a large population, in a dense city, especially when there are like so many people around. I'm thinking the solution makes more sense in busy areas. So if it's busy, then it gets harder for the police officer to also find them. And then, so I would say the logistics part would be something that I would pay attention to. Personally, I really liked the idea of education. And the reason I liked it, I feel like it's actually scalable as well. You can take it to other segments as well, like the unconscious or the conscious ones, and then kind of expand on it over time. And it's basically a platform that manages the relationship maybe between the pet owners and the government. It would be interesting. I'm kind of like thinking out loud here. Maybe that's not a good idea once we dig into it in detail. But I really, really liked the user grouping you came up with, the problems you came up with, the list of solutions you came up with. Probably after the solutioning, I would have taken a slightly different angle. Or I would take that approach and then just like really highlight during the trade-offs what the potential challenges with the idea is. Because sometimes, the benefits outweigh the cons, and it makes sense to still do it. I hope you found the feedback valuable. You use that, and I hope the community actually finds the feedback valuable as well. Do you have anything to add before we wrap up?
Look, I'll be very short. I know it's already been long. I did feel it was dragging a bit, but no, overall, thanks for the feedback. It's excellent. I totally agree with pretty much all your points. I think towards the end there, I just really like the AI solution. So I think in my head when I was looking at awareness, the last pain point, I was kind of looking at it as, if people are, know that there is more consequences to a fine, they'll be more aware, and then new owners would be kind of have the habit of picking up the dog poop because they'll be more concerned, right? The same way that new drivers are more concerned about not driving too fast because they might get a fine. But at the same time, I can see how some of the solutions I myself outlined could have been better for my definitions and my pain points. So 100% direction is good. And just a quick note about the potentially too lengthy process of justifying my answers. I've recently read and learned about the kind of potential value in creating this kind of house of quality tables. So I think I went a bit overboard in this interview. So like I was really excited to try this new thing I've learned. So I'll kind of like implement in a better way. But yeah, I feel like I definitely could have been a bit more. I already knew what I was going with, I guess, if that makes sense. So just saying that instead of dragging it for the full length might have been a better approach. Yeah. So definitely less justifications to that extent, and more relevant to the pain. So the solution more relevant to the pain point would have been definitely something I could have improved and will improve in the future. So yeah, thanks so much for the feedback. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. And again, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like this video if you found it valuable, and post a comment, mention what interview questions you'd like to see me ask other participants in our YouTube channel, and visit our website at productmanagementexercises.com if you're preparing for a PM job interview. And thank you again. Thank you, Nir, and have a good day. Bye.
Thank you, you too. Bye.